So, one of the big challenges for learning and development is not having a return on investment. We do all these great learning and development programs, and how do we measure success? So, our AI app actually gives you feedback and scores you as an assessment on a scale of 1 to 5. The second thing was that people go to learning and development programs, but they don't often get personalized feedback. So our app solved that problem. For every individual gets very personalized feedback. They have clear actionables like smile more, or move your head more, or right rate of speech.
Hi, welcome to my channel, Grit, Grind and Gratitude, where we talk to micro entrepreneurs about their journey of becoming a micro entrepreneur and walking that path. Grit, Grind and Gratitude shares stories of resilience, of purpose, and values-led entrepreneurs who are shaping their futures boldly. Hi Jenny, it's my pleasure to welcome you to my channel Grit, Grind and Gratitude. We met we knew each other from India, and I was wondering why haven't I got you onto this channel yet, but here you are today. So welcome and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you so much, Dipanwita. Hi, I'm Jenny Sarang, and I'm originally from the US. I grew up in San Francisco, California, and then I married an Indian and moved to India. So I have both those global perspectives, 24 years in the US, and then close to 36 plus years in India. So it's a pleasure to be with all of you today. I started my career in finance, and I worked for about 7 years in finance, which actually helped me a lot in learning and development, which is where I moved after that. I've been into learning and development for 28 years. I had the good fortune of working for GE, General Electric, for 10 years, where I headed learning and development in GE SBI credit card in India. And I also headed the professional leadership skills division for GE Corporate India, where I worked with all of GE's strategic customers and suppliers on leadership and business skills. And after 10 years in GE, I moved out of GE and I became an independent consultant. And I had also done my MBA from University of Delhi Faculty of Management Studies, FMS. So all of those really helped me as an independent consultant move out and work across my 28 years in learning and development. I've worked with more than 80 plus companies and across more than 30 plus countries. So I had the good fortune of either doing face-to-face training, offline training in many countries, and also online training. And over those years, I've worked with many companies from Dell to Microsoft, Maruti Suzuki, Indigo Airlines, SAP Labs. I've also worked with United Health Group, EXL, Access Bank, and a whole long list of many companies across various industries. And then about almost 7 years ago now, it's 6 plus years, in 2019, a colleague of mine who we had worked together in G Corporate, her name is Shami Punt Dougal, she and I decided that, we wanted to form a company together, a startup, an AI-enabled app. And so our journey began. In 2019, August of 2019, we began trying to build 2 different products. And one was an email AI-enabled app, and the other one was an AI-enabled app for speaking skills. So if you have a presentation to make, an interview, a sales meeting, or just want general feedback on your speaking and communication skills as a leader, that was an app that could give you that instant feedback. So we've spent now the last close to 7 years working on uSpeek. We actually called the company MyGen. So it's called MyGen AI, as in My Jenny, like me. My nickname is Jenny. And that your MyGen me is there to give you instant AI coaching feedback on that presentation, that interview, or that important meeting, or that influencing opportunity that you have with a senior leader. It took us about a year to build the AI app. And along the way, we decided that uSpeek, which is the AI communication app, was really the right product. And that AI email app, which was called K-Word, we decided to let go of midway. So with that, we've had a journey where we've worked with now more than 15, 20 countries now, and 40 plus companies over the last 6 years, or 5.5 actually, because it took us about a year to build the AI app. Back to you, Dipanwita.
Lovely, lovely journey, and very nostalgic as well. So tell us, what is the gap in the market that uSpeek is currently filling up?
Sure. So one of the big challenges for learning and development is not having a return on investment. We do all these great learning and development programs, and how do we measure success? So our AI app actually gives you feedback and scores you as an assessment on a scale of 1 to 5. So instantly how is your body language, which is your eyes, your facial expressions, your head movement, your hands, your posture, are you swaying, things like that. And it also gives you feedback on your voice, your rate of speech, your modulation, and look at the volume and the pitch. And then it gives you another 5-point score on your word power. So in your word power, it tells you, did you use filler words? Did you have the right sentiment? Were you sounding aggressive? Did you have a good variety of words? Did you sound assertive? And all of those kinds of things. So the real issue is, one, return on investment. So, being able to measure that, our app, AI app, which was developed before AI was a big thing, many years ago, is what it measures. It gives you, you scored a 1.8 or a 2.5 on your first video, and you reach to a 3.8 or a 4 or 4 point something. And so we can track your improvement rate and look at, typically if someone uploads at least 5 to 7 videos, at a minimum they can see is 30% improvement. And we've actually had participants even improve 100%, 150, even more. So first thing, it can prove return on investment. The second thing was that people go to learning and development programs, but they don't often get personalized feedback. So our app solved that problem. For every individual gets very personalized feedback. They have clear actionables like smile more, or move your head more, or right rate of speech, great voice, perfect score, right? So, it'll give you that instant feedback on all those 25 areas of your communication and tell you, what did you do well? Great, keep doing it. What could you have done better? Okay, this is what you need to do better. So that was another thing that most, classes don't give you personalized feedback. You have to get a coach. Coaches are expensive. They may not be available when you actually need that coaching opportunity or that important presentation, or you may not even know yourself. For example, we just finished a project with United Health Group where we were working with the human capital team across the country, across the world, in fact, globally. And I had participants say, I never knew that I was making this expression, or I never knew that I didn't smile enough. I didn't know why smiling was so important. Or, nobody's ever told me that. So suddenly, individual feedback is it's like gold, right? It's something that you now know what you're doing well and how it's impacting, like even human capital. They all had fairly good communication, but they didn't have great communication. So what was that difference between good and great? Now, minutely, they would be able to tell for themselves. Now, it's more than just an assessment tool. It's also a learning tool as well. So we have learning lessons. We've got more than 60 plus micro-learning videos, and we also have a whole bunch of things that you can do as activities, and teaches you how to actually smile more, move your head more, how to modulate your voice more, how to get rid of filler words, right? So all of that is there as micro-learning lessons also. So that was another need. Instant personalized feedback wasn't happening. It was too expensive. And so those are the two main needs. When you have that important need for an interview placement interview, or you're looking at a presentation or influencing someone. Those are those needs where you really need to prepare well and get that personalized feedback, which uSpeek offers. Back to you,
How
Devon.
amazing is that? Let me just quickly recap. So one was that there was it gives the tool gives a very clear ROI, a return on investment on the training, and also personalized feedback, which is like gold for individual people. Cutting out the coaches and the expenditure on coaches that may be required. That's so amazing.
Thank you. And instantly, I would add that as well, Devon, with that
Yeah.
you don't have to wait for the coaching time, or it's real time. That was
Yes.
one of our goals, is that it should be instant, real time, when you need it.
Yes, yes, yes. That sounds amazing. Tell me, what have been your wow moments in this journey?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I think for me, the wow, well, it's just fun to start your own business. And one wow for me would be, I now have a lot better understanding of AI. And even though I had a lot of communication, I mean, I'd done years and years of communication programs. Even, as a GE trainer, we also got certified by Crotonville on many different soft skills and leadership programs. But the kind of depth and clarity I have on how to improve communication skills is even more, because we added a huge amount of research to our learning lessons, and, added, how do I actually do that? How do I work on pet words or filler words? How do I work on smiling? I'm someone who doesn't smile. How do I do that? Right. So we worked a lot on that. So I think learning from myself, just, running a company is an aha moment, a wow. And there are always lots of ups and downs, like every company, there could be, you have to really be resilient and patient, and yet have a resolve and optimistic also. It's a mix of all of that, because there are some years where we thought, oh, are we going to really make it to the next year? Are we going to have enough money and cash flow to make it through another year? And then suddenly, out of the blue, something would happen, and you would have new client, new project, new things coming out of the blue. For example, we actually had a project with the government of Israel, and we were working with school students on having them practice on our app, in high school students. And it was out of the blue for us. We didn't expect this. We, initially had worked with them a year or two earlier, and then suddenly they came back, and then they said, we really want to test you, and with so many thousands of students. And so that was what we call a Bluebird, which is, and that was a new term I didn't know earlier, that, when you get an opportunity, in fact, because of the war situation and other things, they ended up not completely executing it, but that's a Bluebird, right? When you get paid and you don't even have to. And then we were able to use that money for other things, like use it for investing in more sales teams, and use it for investing in the Australian market. For example, a challenge was that my partner, who co-founded the company with me, she got remarried and moved to Australia. So it really changed things about 3 years into the company, and this gave us an opportunity to also be able to try out the Australian market and governments and schools in Australia. So, you just never know. It's a fun, challenging, exciting, and also, stressful, very stressful as well, period of a roller coaster ride, but the belief, the resilience. I think another aha for me was having people really value the app. Like, no matter what feedback, even now, like just recently, like the human capital team I was talking about that I worked with in United Health Group, even they rated our app like 4.53 out of 5. So I continuously feel that the product, the validation that you get from your that's, as I say, the proof in the pudding is when your audience actually really values it. And so the kind of feedback we still get, even today, with leaders across multinational organizations, is very good. So I know that that's the aha. I know that we did have a need. There was a need, and we were correct in that need that we designed to solve for, and people really do like it and value it. So that's an aha too, that you built something that people actually like and care about. And so that's been something that's been really great as well.
So, do you mind delving into one aha moment into greater detail for our listeners to understand it fully?
Okay, so well, one aha moment could be you've got this great product, and so what's the aha is that you've proven it. A lot of times, one of the big failures of many startups is that they make a great product, they think, but people don't want to buy it. Or the other challenge is people like it, but they don't want to pay for it. Now, that has been sometimes our challenge as well. Like, for example, in colleges and students, and everybody loves it and they think it will help them, but getting them to pay for it, who's going to pay? Like the school, the university, who the student, they don't this. So there's a struggle for that. So they like it, but then who pays for it? Now, we have worked with some universities, like we worked with ISB, we've worked with IIM Udaipur, BML Munjal University, Symbiosis, but distribution is again another challenge. So the ahas come, but then they get factored by, okay, now how do we distribute? I think that really has been one of our big challenges, has been the distribution. And how do you sell it, and finding the audience who will pay for it, which has been largely the learning and development corporates. That's where most of our main clients have come from, although we have had students as well, but that had been a challenge, an aha and a challenge. I mean, and I think one of the ahas also around the need would be that everyone finds it useful. Whether you are a student in high school or you are a CEO or one level below the CEO, we've had lots of different users of different levels of experience all use it and actually find it helpful. And so that, again, would be another aha, was trying it out in different levels of experience, different backgrounds. Even another aha for me would be so our app is an English app, and it only evaluates you when you speak in English. Now, I had a participant who was very, the one level below the CFO, and I was coaching him. And he was really struggling with modulating his voice in English. And I said to him, why don't you upload a video in Hindi? And let's see how you score in modulation. So he did, and immediately he got a high score in modulation. So it made him realize that in his mind, he knows how to modulate in Hindi, but it's English. So why is English not his comfort? Is it just that he doesn't have that comfort with the language? So why does he not have that comfort? So then we started delving into, what's holding him back. So he said, in my team, we only speak in Hindi. I said, well, that's the first mistake. You need to change everybody and, make a rule that anytime anyone speaks in Hindi, there's some kind of penalty, make it fun, some small amount of money and that kind of thing. And so he started doing that. And then I said, and how are you using this at home? And he said, well, at home, I never talk in English hardly. And so I said, so, why don't you start watching more English movies? Why don't you start reading to your child in English stories and other things? So he started realizing that there were ways for him to try and change that. And he could modulate his voice. It wasn't beyond his capability. He knew how to do it with Hindi. He can learn how to do it with English as well. So those have been some ahas. In fact, interestingly, we've had people upload Japanese. We've had Spanish. All kinds of different languages, the Indian languages like Tamil, Telugu, and other languages. And we've had them upload their videos into our app. And we've seen, and I've been very pleasantly surprised, that the score doesn't really change a huge amount, because our scoring is largely based on the very famous research from UCLA, where they found that your body language is about 55% of the impact, your voice is about 37%, and your words are a mere 8% when you communicate. And so we uploaded thousands of videos into our app as we were calibrating it the first year we built it. And we found that, when we have people upload in another language, it slightly changes the score. Like maybe instead of a 3.5, you got a 3.2 or 3.3. But between a 3.3 and a 3.5, there's not a lot of difference. However, word power will not be correct. But our score is largely skewed to body language, close to 50%, vocal tone, again, 35%, and then that last 15-20%, which is really what another language would be, is not a big impact on your score. So that was another aha that, we encourage people. If you want to upload, you feel more comfortable in a local language, do. And that's how we've worked with people across 20 plus countries as well, and a lot of different organizations where they have global teams. Like our app has been used by many multinationals across global teams. For example, like Sagility, we had people in 20 different countries. United Health Group, similarly, we've had many people from many countries and many leadership programs and others as well.
Wow, so I do hear a lot of aha moments coming from the beauty of the product itself and the acknowledgement of the beauty of the product in the results that it was showing to the people who were using it. And also, the ability to surmount the challenge of language, because your app was an English app, but it could very well take into consideration when spoken in other languages. Yeah, so those were beautiful wow moments. You did touch upon the challenges in between sometimes, but I would like to delve deeper into what are the challenges for the last 6 years of running uSpeek.
Sure. So first challenge is that we were 2 female co-founders. And if you study how much globally typically goes in venture capital or startup funding to women founders, it's a very small percent. It's like 2 to 3%. Whether you're in the US or you're in India, a very small percent goes to female founders. In fact, 90% of female founders in India, for example, which is where we started and we're largely based, rely on their own funds rather than formal, even bank loans or venture capital money. So though my partner and I both come from a corporate sector, multinationals, very strong pedigree, but still, we pitched to close to 40 plus venture capital firms. And the pandemic came in the middle of all of that as well. But we were never able to secure funding. Now, there were several reasons for that. It could not just be the fact that we were women, but there were other challenges for us. For example, one of the challenges we found with the app was finding reoccurring income. Because as a startup, they're looking for you to prove that people take a subscription and keep the app for a long period of time. Now, our app typically is often used once. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months sometimes, depending on the project. But the company will do reoccurring income. So like this year, for example, we work with United Health Group for many years now. They would have hundreds of people who are using the app, but every year it's not the same 100 people. Every year it would be different groups of people. So though you can prove that is retention to a certain extent, if your customer keeps retaining, but they would prefer if it's a subscription based where it's the same person who's subscribing. So that was another challenge we had from a business products perspective. And I think the other big challenge too in startups is attracting the right talent. You're a very, very small team, and having that right talent, people, who want to come to you and being able to pay them, and that is can be a very challenging issue. Scaling, like I was talking about, we've tried a lot of different things, and we've tried partnering, we've tried having commission based, we've tried hiring salespeople, we've tried coaching centers, we've tried coaches, we've tried our contacts, many things. We've tried even conferences. Like we've attended 7 different conferences in the last years, and that also can be a challenge. Is distribution, I think, has been, and scaling has been our one of our biggest challenges, because what you find with this type of product, which is an AI enabled individual learning, again, positioning matters as well, is that typically it's not a B2C product, it's a B2B product. But we tried B2C in the beginning, but really B2B tends to be the better option, which is where we've had a lot of success there. So that's been some of our other challenges. And being an AI tech product, AI is constantly changing. And expectations are constantly changing as well. In fact, when we made our app, uSpeek, there were no generative AI products out there, didn't exist. But now with generative AI, people are asking, oh, does your app rewrite what I just said and tell me how to say it better? And it doesn't right now. But one of the big challenges is that cost of technology. I mean, we spent huge amounts of money on making the technology. We spend huge amounts of money on maintaining the technology and keeping it up to date. And you have constantly security changes, all kinds of changes, API changes, customer expectation changes, even, for example, certifications, like ISO 27001. That's, again, becoming an expectation. Again, it depends on who you're working with, what multinationals. So, and all of this has to be done every year. So the cost of technology, updating it, maintaining it, enhancing it, developing it is huge. And you need a good amount of revenue constantly growing to be able to do that. In fact, there's a product that started after we did called Udly. And Udly has received $68 million. And they're based in the US, in California and Seattle. And then those markets, $68 million, and they have a very large team, has actually allowed them to totally reinvent their product 3 times, totally different. Like they started with a video assessment similar to ours. The second version of what they came out with was now using generative AI. Before generative AI had barely even started becoming big. And then now they've gone to role play, where they actually give you role play options and they have video. You do a role play, a set, like you're talking to someone in a role play, and they're giving you feedback and then telling you how to re-say it. But $68 million is a huge amount, which allows you to do a lot of technology improvements. And the other thing that I would say is that leveraging, your network and making sure you're leveraging your network. And India is another challenge for us would be the price sensitive market of India, because India, we want it, but we don't want to pay for it. And so how can you give a low cost product? But if you look at the cost of even ChatGPT, if you buy the paid version, or Claude, if you buy the paid version, it's a lot, right? We can't really afford that. I mean, that's also to a certain extent what holds us back in India, is not being able to leverage all of these amazing things that are coming out, because they're expensive. Like even making a video twin in learning videos or other things, because the cost of the software is just so expensive. And it's back to you.
So just recapping, one is funding. I heard that you as women founders, and also the app didn't have subscription models for the same user, though you had repeat customers from corporates, but it did not have the same individual customer. So that was a hindrance in progress for you. Also, I heard challenges around keeping up with the change in the technology in generative AI, and that was a big challenge for you. And obviously the bootstrapping, how bootstrapped you are as founders. Yeah, great, good. So the last question for the interview is, what would be your words of advice for people who are starting out on their entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So my first word of advice is cash. Cash is king. Cash can end your business. And given my finance background, I have always had an eye on cash flow, the bank account, how much do we have? Because if you don't have money to pay salaries or pay all the people you owe, you don't go anywhere. And so that's a really key one. I would say as a thumb rule, 4 to 6 months should be sitting in your bank account of whatever your run rate is that you're running at, your monthly basic costs. At least 4 to 6 months you should have sitting in your bank account. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very tough. So that's number one. And bootstrapped, I would actually suggest, at least for the first few years, bootstrapping if you can, from yourself, from your friends and family, because once you bring in an investor, it completely changes your focus. It completely changes the way you make decisions, the way you look at profits. So you then become very got to make profit, got to show more revenue, and sometimes, we don't always choose what we would actually have chosen if that wasn't the driver. So if you can manage on your own, bootstrap it for a couple of years, can really make a difference. It also allows you to make a lot more as a founder as well, because then your shares are worth a lot more than they are if you have hardly any, so far you're not having much traction. Now, the third one is a really important one, which is that 90% of startups fail. And I think it's really important before you begin to understand what will happen if you fail. If you're not, what are those legal consequences in the country that you're operating in if your business doesn't succeed? I'll give you an example. I had my niece in Delhi, had a friend who started a company. She had a marketing background, was doing really well, worked for some great multinationals. And then she started with another colleague, a company for female care products. And they did really well. They ramped up to 200 people. They sold their female care products across the country. And then suddenly they weren't meeting their targets set out by the investors. And they, were running out of money, and they ran out of money, and they had to close shop. Today they have closed shop, but this is several years later. And she was telling me that she still has to be regularly on calls, because she said, which I was never aware of, that in India, you can never make a company bankrupt. You cannot, like in the US, you can file for bankruptcy and you can close a company. In India, they don't allow it. They don't allow you to file for bankruptcy as long as you have outstanding loans, which she does, by investors who've invested money in the company, or you have outstanding inventory, which she did, at different stores across the country, and you have people you owe. Again, you cannot close a company in India for bankruptcy. So it's like, I said, so when are these calls going to end? And she said, as she's stuck in this loop as a founding director on all of these different calls that she didn't realize that she was signing up for when she signed up. And another interesting perspective she gave me was she was trying to get back to a corporate job in her late 30s, having invested 6, 7, 8 years outside the corporate sector, and they would not give her any weightage for those 7, 8 years. They said those years have no value, even though she was working full-time, leading a team of 200 people spread across the country in a very innovative. They were going to bring her back to her marketing salary of eight years ago. And
that's very surprising, actually, because usually they give advantage to your entrepreneurial experience.
You would think so. And I asked her, have you tried several companies? Is it just one? And she said, no, that's the answer I'm getting from all the HR people, is that that experience has no value, and so we'll hire you at the old salary from years ago. I'm like, that's horrible. I said, that's shocking that you can't position it into a different way and gain that experience back. It's, I guess, especially because she's already 38, 39 now, so she was really struggling trying to get back into the corporate sector after trying this in her early 30s. Mm-hmm. And but I mean, she's always been working. She had never quit. So you would think, anyway. So my point on that is, the nugget is, be careful. That know your risks also. That think about, understand your career risks, your career impact if this doesn't succeed, and try and get some intel on that before actually jumping. And the fifth important nugget is agree on exits of co-founders or directors in an agreement up front. And it's very common, for example, in India, even for myself, to realize, like, my husband set up a business and there was no exit clause. I set up a business with my partner. There was no exit clause. And then what happens is, if you don't have an exit clause for the person to exit the business, then you don't end up agreeing. Each one has their different opinion of what should be the exit clause. And I found out that that's pretty normal in India. In India, most people don't have exit clauses. In the US, it's a very common thing to have an exit clause. But before you even begin, you want to actually discuss, okay, if one of us wants to leave, how will we work that out? What are going to be the, and sign the paper, and both of you sign and agree to that. And the other thing that I think is important to think about is to have someone else review the agreement you are making as a co-founder, founder, director that's not you. Think from a different lens. They can look at this and say, is this a good deal for you too? Or is this a good deal for the other person? And so I think it's really important to have a sounding board who's going to, help you say, is it a good deal for you? I'm not, yes or no. We tend to get carried away in a startup. Oh, it sounds exciting. You want to jump in, but having someone else reassess it for you before you jump and sign, I think is really important. And keep your company on a slow burn. As they say, those monthly expenses are really important. That can sustain you for a lot longer. And who you hire is very, very important. That makes or breaks your company. And lastly, have mentors or coaches, someone who has experience. I highly recommend watching a lot of startup movies. Like, for example, you have Steve Jobs, you have Bezos. And I saw a woman startup movie, which was great, which was called Swiped. It's about the woman startup founder of Bumble, the app. And it was a very interesting, she first starts with another company and then comes to Bumble, but it teaches you a lot also, even from a woman's perspective and in general. So, and keep watching movies, reading books, doing all those things. Have other people who have started businesses and been successful as someone you can go to and talk to, kind of get their advice. That also can really make a difference. I've heard that from many other startup owners we had a couple who we would reach out to, and then they would talk about who their mentors were and how they had helped them. And so I think that really makes a big difference as well. So those are my nine nuggets.
Yeah, let me quickly
owners.
recap them before I forget. So one is trying to see the runway of 4 to 6 months in terms of your cash requirements, money, trying to focus that, getting your exit clauses in place for co-founders and founders together. There was a thing about, getting coaches and getting an external point of view. Is it making sense for you? Is it beneficial for you, this agreement or not? Then also focusing on your learning. Yeah, roughly, more or less, this is the kind of umbrella that we could cover all your 9 nuggets under. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for your time today. Your journey really illustrates a lot of grit, a lot of grind, and oodles of gratitude for what the universe has brought on your table. We really thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Pamada, for asking me. Thank you. Have a great day.
If you like this interview, please don't forget to subscribe by pressing the bell icon and follow us on our social media handles as we talk to more and more micro entrepreneurs who are living their dreams boldly.